Chester Elton, best-selling author of Anxiety at Work, and I'm delighted to have Rachel Keck as my guest today. Rachel, you work with the Culture Think Tank and the whole platform that helps companies create better cultures. Did I say that right?
Mm-hmm. Yep. Yeah. I have used the Culture Think Tank's survey with a number of my clients. Yes, which I was so happy to find something so easy to use.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, how do the Culture Think Tank tools help you and your clients address specifically anxiety at work?
Right. Well, I think first of all, Chester, it's just awareness. With the tool, you actually get a reading to just see where your people are. I think a lot of times, at least when I've gone into to companies, it takes a while to make those kinds of assessments, right? You can take 3 months just kind of getting a pulse on how people really are. And with this tool, I mean, in sometimes even a week, you have the anxiety level. And then not only that, but you have the anxiety level compared to everybody else that's taken the survey. So you know kind of, is this just where we are right now, like collectively? Or is there something in our workplace that's really prompting more anxiety? So it's just so helpful and clear.
Yeah, it's so interesting. Like companies do engagement surveys, and it gives them kind of this broad view. What really is wonderful about the Culture Think Tank are those three main indicators, right? You've got
Mhm.
culture, wellness, and then anxiety. What I thought was really interesting as you looked at the data is that the leading indicator of wellness and of a healthy culture was
It's
the
the
anxiety
anxiety.
index. So
I know.
expound on that a little bit.
I know. I think that's really interesting too, which I mean, just personally with a history of severe anxiety, I mean, I hadn't put all that together even for myself working with companies that the anxiety really is, and it's not really that controllable, right? I mean, you can't necessarily control the anxiety level at your workplace. What you can be is responding to it. I mean, paying attention to it, which is what I talk to clients about. This you're always going to have some level of anxiety because we're human beings and that's how we are. And some level of anxiety can be really helpful for people, but to be able to catch a spike in that gives you the ability to respond in a more purposeful, intentional way.
Yeah, the thing that I think is so fascinating about the Culture Think Tank is, yes, it gives you the data and it
Yeah,
says it's going to spike. You say you really can't control anxiety at the workplace, right? Because stuff happens.
right.
If I'm not mistaken, though, the Culture Think Tank, what it does is it does give you as a manager tools to say, hey, I understand that your anxiety levels are high. Let's do this, this, and this. So it's not just, hey, by the way, your anxiety scores are through the roof.
That's
It's
right.
here's also what you can do about it. I
That's
got
right.
that right, I think, didn't I?
Yeah, that's right. Well, and typically, Chester, where I have ended up as a coach and consultant is in growing mid-sized companies. So companies that are really in growth mode, expanding rapidly. And what the Culture Think Tank has provided is very, very clear. Here's what's going on. Here's what your people need. Here's some next steps to address it. And not only next steps, but here's resources that might equip you for those next steps. So it, especially in when in companies in growth mode, it's priceless. I mean, it's awesome.
So, and really interesting. So, tell me a little bit more about your consulting practice, and what did you do before you had the Culture Think Tank numbers?
Yeah. Well, I would spend months. I mean, one of the things I like to kind of focus in on where workplace culture and customer service meet. So that customer experience is near and dear to my heart. So that's typically where I enter into a company, and I had developed a 4 week kind of blueprint series, and through that 4 weeks, I would kind of make some assessments on, the strength of the culture, how equipped do people feel in their roles, which is that wellness, that well-being score that you're talking about, and just what's the underlying current. That's just what I look for, the underlying current, which is that anxiety. And it would take a while to, and I just could do it for that one group that was coming through my series, instead of now being able to just ask everyone in the organization and be way more. It's such a way to, one of my favorite books is Essentialism, the idea of like putting all of your energy and focus into one point. And I feel like that's what this culture think tank tool does, is helps you use your time and energy well.
Yeah. Talk to me a little bit about the simplicity too. I know that, clients can be overwhelmed by data, right? You start to parse it out. Talk about the simplicity with just those three very specific areas, and how easy it is for clients to understand this massive data that can be so confusing and yet parsed out into three really munchable, you could say, or digestible, chunks, right?
Yeah, it's intuitive. It's just so user friendly. You can see it. A debrief with a client, I don't have to explain all the data. They just see it, and then we can have a productive conversation about what's the strategy to move ahead. So I don't spend a whole lot of time explaining it, because it's how they've put this data together, and it's so readable, that it's super easy to use. And the thing is, it's only like 7 questions.
Isn't that great?
It's remarkable.
Instead of those 200 questions you fill out in an engagement survey, right?
It's remarkable. So to get participation is so much easier, because you're asking people to spend maybe 5 minutes instead of, like a 50 question survey. But in those 7 questions, there's 7 very specific questions that, so much can be extrapolated from. That's incredibly helpful.
Talk about, as a coach, then, how that helps you showcase your value in a very short period of time.
Mm-hmm. Well, it gives clear next steps. For me and my business, one of the things that was always a challenge is it went from not working to me to spending thousands of dollars. Right. There wasn't that middle step of let's kind of do a little something together and see how we gel, how we align, but do something that provides value. And this tool has been that kind of next step in the sales funnel of being able to say, let's do this just snapshot of where your culture is. You're going to get incredible value just in the data. And we'll kind of see how the conversation goes between, is there alignment to work together? So,
specifically back to the anxiety index, my co-author, Adrian Gossick, and I, we did this massive deep dive into why anxiety is so high. And of course, one of the reasons that it's so high is because no one will talk about it, right?
Yeah.
90% of employees don't feel safe talking to their immediate supervisor about their anxiety. And instead, they just quit, right? They'll get overwhelmed and they'll quit. Talk to me a little bit about, we talked about that anxiety is the number one driver of both wellness and culture. Talk about how the Culture Think Tank and that platform makes it safe for people to talk about this really sensitive issue.
Yeah. Well, I think one thing is just the clarity of the tool, right? People feel safer when there's more clarity. And sometimes you can't provide a whole lot of clarity, but what this tool does is give you the clarity you need in the moment to make the best leadership decisions. So one of my recent snapshots, one of sort of the big revelations in it was that the managers themselves, those middle managers, so not senior leaders or team members, but middle managers, are actually disconnecting, they're distancing from the culture. So one of the readings that you get in the survey is what percentage of your people are connecting to the culture and what percent are distancing. And I think being able to see that and then lean into that. Okay, now that's when my job becomes, do you feel equipped to have those conversations? Do you feel equipped to lean into that data and have those hard conversations? Which makes me want to ask you, I'm going to turn the table real quick.
Sure.
Why anxiety? What was the catalyst for you to write Anxiety at Work?
Yeah, great question. So Adrian Gostick and I have been writing about workplace culture and leadership for over 20 years now.
Mm-hmm.
We both had children that suffered from anxiety and depression.
Okay.
And it was so funny. It was Adrian's son, Anthony. If you'll notice on the book, it's Adrian Gostick and Chester Elton and Anthony Gostick. He's actually a co-author. He was the one that pushed us and said, you oldies don't talk about anxiety. It's verboten, it's too big of a stigma. He said, my generation, that's all we talk about. You're missing a really key element. And boy, was he right. Started the research pre-pandemic. And then, of course, the pandemic, anxiety and whatnot just spikes. So thanks for asking that question. So you're a coach. You use the Culture Think Tank tool. Other coaches are going to be watching this. Mm-hmm. What are 2 or 3 things that you would say to them in their practice about the Culture Think Tank tool and why, as a consultant, and that they should be interested in using the Culture Think Tank in their practice?
Well, yeah, I mean, I think one of the things that I'm always looking for are value added things, not just my hourly, rate of service, but what can I add above and beyond that? And how do I get a regular rhythm of work? And so, I mentioned how this tool has been that piece in my kind of sales funnel that I needed, that middle, like, first step in working together, but also it provides recurring opportunity. So when people begin to just love this data and be able to make decisions from the tool, now they're going to want to do it quarterly, or a couple times a year, which keeps that relationship going. And without too much of your time, like, you don't have to be spending hours and hours figuring out what's going on. You can use the tool and what's going on, and it's much easier. It's just more precise help.
Yeah. So we're talking with Rachel Keck. She's a wonderful consultant that uses the Culture Think Tank platform. I've got a couple more questions, and then I just want to thank you for your time, because I know everybody's really busy. But, the tool is great. You need to have that backup, that help, the interpretation, the distribution, and so on. Talk a little bit about how easy it is, or not easy. I mean, be really candid, to work with the folks at the Culture Think Tank. What is that relationship like for you?
Yeah, well, I mean, that has been wonderful to have the support. There are people to talk to, which is great. People, I mean, even just to message and say, because there are things, in fact, a debrief of one of the surveys I did this week, the owner of the company said, well, do you measure on the median or the mean? And, I'm asking questions, kind of getting to the root of why do you tell me more about that question? Yeah. And just being able to shoot off that question to an actual person that I can have a conversation with, and to strategize. I mean, one of the things that was helpful really at the beginning was being able to talk to, specifically Will and Cynthia, and just get to understand strategy and understand, what to expect, and how to roll it out well, because they've thought about it. I mean, Cynthia's been doing it, and to feel that sense of support has been really just icing on the top.
That's so great, because you can have great tools. If you don't like the people that you're working with, it's that juice isn't worth the squeeze, right?
Right. Yeah. So true.
One last question. So we've had a wonderful discussion about the tool and about your clients and so on. If there's one thing you wanted people to take out from this conversation, other coaches that are maybe considering using the Culture Think Tank, what would that one thing be that you want them to remember?
Well, what came to mind when you asked that, Chester, was it can be easy. This makes it, there is a sense of ease with the survey, the tool, the data, that it's just, with ease comes greater momentum, I think. And so it's a sense of ease that it makes it completely worth it.
That's awesome. So, Rachel, if other coaches wanted to call you and get the real scoop, because we're recording and you're being would you be willing to talk to them, and how would they contact you?
Absolutely. I mean, a great way to find me is on LinkedIn. So, Rachel Keck with Mosaic Collaborative on LinkedIn. That's probably the best way. We're always open to an email at rachel@mosaic-collaborative.com.
Excellent. I always like to ask people as we wrap up interviews, because we know that gratitude is a great way to tamp down your own anxiety. You can't be in a state of gratitude and a state of anxiety at the same time. So what's one thing you're grateful for today?
Oh, the sunshine today, for sure.
Good one.
Gosh, it's been so gray. I can't take it, but it's beautiful. The sun is shining. The trees are budding. It's Friday.
Life is good.
Yeah.
Hey, thanks so much for your time. I really appreciate it.
Thank you, Chester.